I'm going to show you how to make kimchi here. And all I've done is this bowl is, I'll kind of tip it up so you can see. This part is shredded cabbage. That's one head of shredded cabbage. Usually I use the red cabbage, but this is what was given to me, so this is what I'm using. And I don't follow the same recipe every time. The rest of it, it's about half cabbage, half daikon radish. So I used a lot of daikon radish here, and then I used one bag of these red radishes, which are, what does it say on it? 1 pound. So I used 1 pound of the red radishes. I like the color of it, so I like the color of the red cabbage too, which it turns, you know, when you're first packing it into the jars, it looks beautiful. And so I don't know, it makes me feel good about what I'm doing when it looks beautiful when I'm creating it. So, it all ends up about the same color in the end anyway. When you use the purple cabbage, and it's just all kind of purplish. Well, you've seen my kimchi. So anyway, the recipe that I originally went from, and I wrote it down this time so that I could tell you, this is a good one to go to. It's a good cookbook. It's a cookbook put out by a couple guys. They're French Canadians, David Cote and Matthew Gallant, and their cookbook is called, and I guess it's not a cookbook because it's a raw book, it's a recipe book called Raw Essence. And page 132 you'll find their kimchi recipe. And what they do is they dissolve sea salt in water. So that's a 1/4 cup of sea salt, and that's the pink Himalayan, as you can see because it's pink, and in 4 cups of water. And then they just let that cool down. Once that's dissolved and then it's cooled down, then they pour it over top of the wind. Pour it over top of the vegetables. And then, so I was going to show you, but I don't have to show you. But anyway, I'm going to give you their recipe is basically you do that, then you pour the brine over the cabbage and the daikon radish. They use daikon, not nearly this much. And normally I wouldn't use nearly this much either, but this was given to me and I was like, hey, you know, I hardly eat any radish. The only radish that I end up eating is in the kimchi. And so I figure, well, I do eat a lot of cabbage outside the kimchi, so let's just try it with more radish and see if I can eat it, if it's good for me. Like, anyway. And so anyway, then they after they let that sit, so you pour this water on top of your stuff, and then you just cover it over. I have a lid for this container, so this is the container I always use for this. I use this, I know it's plastic. I used to have a great big clay one, and it was quite heavy. But then I broke it because I break all of my dishes because my fingers, I don't feel as well with them as I used to. So things drop. And anyway, but my feeling, I noticed, is coming back in various parts of my body. So I don't know why, but I'm thankful for that. And maybe one day I won't be dropping things, and then I will get a nice big ceramic bowl again, and I won't feel bad because I won't break it. But anyway, so this is what I use. I use it for mixing up my burger patties. They have great recipes in this book. Get it out, Raw Essence. As they make burger patties with the food dehydrator and stuff. And well, I just use my oven as a food dehydrator because it's old and it's always warm in there. So anyway, they have some great recipes. It's worth getting this book out, which is why I'm mentioning this. You can get probably just as good or better recipes for kimchi from just off the internet for free, or whatever, from a number of different cookbooks. But I like their recipe books, this one. And So I'm recommending this one. And then they add, after they've drained and rinsed the brine out of the cabbage and radish, then they add minced hot peppers, a bunch of green onions, a few cloves of garlic, some ginger root, quite a bit, quarter cup, and 2 tablespoons of agave nectar and 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. And I was doing the sesame oil for a while. I wasn't doing the agave nectar ever, but I don't feel that it's necessary. I can put the sesame oil on my food when I'm done. And what I do instead, actually, I put, I've been putting minced various sea vegetables in the last step. So, or not minced. I put the dried, like say wakame and kelp or whatever I choose to use, into the coffee grinder. And I grind it up so it's a powder, and then I put it in, and it's been working out nicely. So anyway, and I've found some recipes where they say try kale. I've tried kale, it doesn't work as well. Cabbage works well, and I've tried different things like using chives and whatever. It doesn't work as well. It's better with the green onions, so use the green onions. And what else have I tried over the years? Anyway, it doesn't matter. What I was going to mention about this recipe is they just drain and rinse the Himalayan sea salt dissolved in the water, and it's gone. Why? Because once you put this onto the cabbage and the radish, and what comes out, like, it's going to take all the moisture, that salt is going to, like, the reason that they dissolve it in the water is because if you have ever made sauerkraut before, you're sitting there in front of the TV, which is not always a bad thing, because you could be watching stuff like this, which they weren't great movies. This was okay, actually. Electric Love was about people finding each other on, what are they, Tinder and or something, and Grinder, I don't know, these different things, and how sometimes it pans out and sometimes not, right? And so they followed a few couples, and it's not a documentary, it's a movie, and it's actually pretty decent. It seems fairly quite independent, but it won a bunch of awards, and I think it deserved it. So yeah, it's kind of, you know, there's a Hollywood romance in this, right? And they, even on the back of the box here, they point out these guys are not picking up on the red flags kind of that are going along in the relationship, right? And at the end, you see that these people, they're going to get back together, and it's going to be like a Hollywood romance, and it's like, wow, should it ever not be? You know, they shouldn't get back together. I don't know if I'm showing off my chest at the camera. I hope not. Anyway, Captive State. This had John Goodman, a bunch of people in. Anyway, it was okay. I haven't gotten into that series of aliens taking over the world movies yet, but maybe I will. It just seems sort of slow-paced for me, and which is fine. Just maybe I would rather see them when they're all done with them, rather than just a little at a time, because honestly, I'm having a hard time getting into it. But, oh, what I was going to say about the brine. You pour the brine on, it's getting rid of, like, this is taking, when you mix it with water like this and you pour it on, it spreads it evenly over the cabbage and the radish, so you can just cover it and it just sits there for 4 hours, and you don't have to be working it or anything like that. So this recipe, this is why I've chosen to show you this recipe, is because many people do not want to be doing this. For even what I don't find it's a big deal. You sit and watch a movie and work away, and then it's done, right? But some people would rather just stick it through the food processor, which is what I did here, because there's no way that I'm gonna sit and grate all of that. That would be ridiculous. That's a bad use of one's time and energy. So I stuck this through the food processor, and when I pour this on, all of those lovely flavors in the cabbage and the radishes go back into the brine. So the liquids are going to get out of the radish and the cabbage for the most part, and they're going to be into the brine. So then, why would you waste that brine? Don't drain and rinse. No, no, no. You drain that and save it to make soup. This is a great soup stock once you get this made. So that's my big secret, is the kimchi. I've followed this recipe because this is going to make excellent soup as well as kimchi. So we're gonna have both, and I can make whatever kind of, usually it's just a vegetable sort of soup or whatever, but this broth that comes out of here is so yum for soup. So that's all I had to say.